All right, so recently on Twitter, I was discussing some of the potential villains that we could see in the Spider-Man sequel, whether it be like Mysterio, Green Goblin, Venom, Sandman, etc. And one of my friends on Twitter mentioned that they would like to see the next Spider-Man game only consist of one villain and have that villain be Venom. And, you can have the enemy types be like the Venom symbiotes, and he didn't really understand why in every superhero game we've had, like every Spider-Man, Batman game, they can't just stick to having one villain, and it seems like they always have to branch off and have 15 side villains. And this isn't an argument I hear super often, but I do hear it from time to time. I do hear, I believe even in the IGN review for Batman Arkham City, I think Greg Miller said that there was a bit of an oversaturation of villains. With Arkham Asylum, I have heard the argument that Joker should have been the only villain and that the rest should have just been inmates. I've heard that with Arkham Origins, there's too many villains. I heard with Spider-Man, the Sinister Six had too many villains and should have just stuck to Doc Ock and made that a more personal story. And again, it's not something that I hear super often, but it is an argument that is audible in the superhero gaming community. Now, I do think that there's a very good reason that there's more than one villain per game. However, I will say that I do think that a lot of times these villains could be handled better. For example, in Spider-Man, I think it would have been much better if we could have seen each villain from the Sinister Six shine in a side mission, or each get a small section of the story. I felt like a lot of them were really underutilized. With that said, I think that the story would have been a bit less interesting had they not been there at all. And the same goes for the Arkham games. And the argument for only wanting one villain is generally pointed to comics like The Killing Joke or films like The Dark Knight, where it's there's only one or two villains, but they make a huge impact because you have so much time to see them develop and grow. And my argument is that while that is true, the amount of hours that you spend reading The Killing Joke or the amount of time that you spend watching The Dark Knight is vastly shorter than playing through Batman Arkham City. And I'd even make the argument that we have seen not full games that only focus on one villain, but we have seen video game content that only focuses on one villain. We've seen side missions do that. They tell little self-contained stories. They're kind of like comic issues within the game. And could they be better? Absolutely. But I look at the Mr. Freeze mission in Arkham Knight. That's a fully self-contained small story within the story of Arkham Knight, and it's impactful and interesting. I look at the Cold Heart DLC from Arkham Origins, Harley Quinn's Revenge from Arkham City. I even look at Batman Telltale Season 2, Episode 1, where it's really just the Riddler as the villain, but it's set within a larger story. I look at The City That Never Sleeps, where really Hammerhead was the villain of a 4-hour story arc. Black Cat played a role. But ultimately, when I walk away from each of these experiences, it's odd because only in the side missions have I ever felt I really wish I could have more of that content. So in Arkham Knight, for example, the Two-Face and Penguin missions were really subpar. And it's I really wish I could have a better Two-Face experience within this game. But at the same time, walking away from longer stories like Cold Heart or Enigma from Batman Telltale or The City That Never Sleeps from Spider-Man, it doesn't generally leave me wanting much more of just that villain. And again, it's because whereas a film or a single issue in a comic is maybe an hour, 2 hours long, a video game is 8 to 15 hours. So we have a lot more time with these characters, and if we're only focused on one villain, the story would quickly become filler. And I think, honestly, the first act, and maybe even the second act of Spider-Man, while not bad, they show what happens when you don't really have enough going on in a superhero story, where you start getting missions that are go visit Dr. Octavius, now go to the feast shelter, now go visit MJ, now go to your apartment, and it's just all these missions of go here, watch this cutscene, go here, watch this cutscene. And I'm not really interested in doing that in a Spider-Man or Batman game. So while I understand the appeal of having only one villain, I don't think that it would work in the format of a game. If you want a really personal story, read an issue of a comic, watch a film, because the video game medium is just different. And again, while I do think that a lot of these villains could be handled better or used more in the games, I don't see a game with only one villain remaining engaging and interesting for the whole time that you're playing it. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.